Galileo Galilei. A sharp mind. Whether you have one or if you don't, sharp minds are the key to everything. It only takes one sharp mind, taking something everyone thought is fact, only to call it out to be fiction. It only takes one sharp mind to change the world. One such sharp mind was Galileo Galilei. He was a sharp mind so influential, he changed the entire course of 3 studies. Without him, astronomy, physics, and science would look a lot different than they do today. But what made him so influential? How did he do it? And why did he do it? Well, it's about time we found out. So without further ado, let's begin. First, a bit of backstory. Galileo Galilei was born in 1564 in the town Pisa, Italy. Galileo was born during the Italian Renaissance, and he and his brothers and sisters grew up, and in 1574, they moved to Florence, Italy, where Galileo started flourishing as a great musician and a great student. Galileo started striving to become a doctor, so in 1581, he went to Pisa University. This is where Galileo grew a love for physics and math. He was always distracted by a pendulum lamp that was swinging on the roof of his study hall. A pendulum lamp is a lamp that's fixed to a point, swinging on a chain or a rope. Galileo was confused by it because it took the same time to swing from one side as it did to the other, which contradicted a science rule back then. So he looked into it, and in 1585, he became a teacher. He also found out new rules for pendulums, while also finding out something much more important. Let's find out what that is. First off, Galileo has already done something that no other scientist has, which is he's broken the rules by experimenting. Most scientists of the Italian Renaissance didn't actually experiment, but instead they would study what philosophers said. Galileo, however, was the first to implement what those philosophers said in the form of experiments. He also created one of the most long-lasting experimenting methods of ever, and we call this method the scientific method, which we still use today. One of the greatest examples of this is in 1591, when Galileo performed the 2 balls experiment. It's a common myth in Italy that if you're to take 2 balls, one heavier than the other, drop it off the Tower of Pisa, the heavy one would hit the ground first. Seems simple to replicate. So when Galileo did this, however, they hit the ground at the same time. When he looked into this, he found a new rule of science. People really didn't like this, however, as he disproved the common myth. So in 1592, he moved to Padua University, where he could freely express his ideas. Let's get something straight. Galileo wasn't the first person to think that the sun is at the center of the solar system. This idea belongs to Copernicus. He was the first person to think of it, as he was a scientist in the early 1500s. Galileo was just the person to start popularizing it. Usually when people address the idea, they either address Galileo or rarely both of them. In 1609, Galileo had gotten word of a new invention called a telescope. You know what a telescope is, but in this version of a telescope, it wasn't as well as it could be in Galileo's eyes. So he improved on it, making a few modifications here, making a few tweaks there, and he finally got a model that could see all 4 moons of Jupiter and the craters on the moon. That doesn't seem like much of a feat nowadays, but trust me, back then it was really good. So good, however, that this model of the telescope was spread across Europe, providing an inspiration to base off of for future generations. In 1632, however, this is the start of Galileo's downfall. Galileo posted a book about why he thinks that the sun is at the center of the solar system, because back then, people thought that the Earth was at the center of the solar system. The Catholics, however, did not like this. So they tried to throw Galileo into jail for life, but they only got away with throwing him under house arrest for 10 years. But you could have called that 10 years a life sentence, as Galileo unfortunately passed away in his house in 1642. Now, you might see this timeline as just a flat old line. I'd like to see it as a road. With every road comes roadblocks. Now, some people, when encountering a roadblock, would turn away. But no, Galileo barreled through roadblocks. He didn't let anything stop him but death itself. But why? And what were the things that would stop Galileo anyways? Well, let's examine this road even closer, and maybe we might be able to find what tried to stop Galileo. Firstly, the people. Now, it wasn't Galileo or the people that were in the wrong in this situation, but instead it was the people's mindset that made them invulnerable to Galileo's ideas. To give you a better example of this, I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's imagine for your entire life, you've thought that apples were blue. Obviously, apples are not naturally blue. Apples are usually red, with some exceptions like yellow and green. But in this scenario, let's just say you thought that they were blue for your entire life. You've heard people you trust, people you know, telling you that apples are blue. And one day, someone comes up to you and says, hey, actually, I think apples are red. Would you think that guy is just a crazy old kook? Or would you just trust him and disprove all of the people who you trust, who you know, for this one random guy on the street? Yeah, this is what happened with Galileo. People had already been told this by people that they trust, and Galileo was just a scientist. So people chose not to trust him instead of maybe giving his idea a shot. This quote from Theodore Roosevelt can give us a bit more information on this. Courage is not having the strength to go on, it's going on when you don't have the strength. Even though Galileo was told he was wrong by people who he shared his ideas with, still, he kept moving on because that's just what a sharp mind would do. Secondly, the Catholics. The Catholics were the one who threw him in jail, in case you forgot. And let me give you another scenario so you can better understand this as well, why they did this, as it's not entirely their fault. So imagine for your entire life you think that apples are blue, except now you think that a guy went around making the apples blue. So you worship this guy, you create a religion around him. One day someone comes and says that apples are red. This is like taking out the core foundations of a building. Once that's gone, everything's gone. He's basically trying to destroy your religion in your eyes. So instead of trusting him, the more sensible idea is to arrest him. Arrest him for hearsay, for spreading his dirty lies. But of course, this did not stop Galileo. This quote from Babe Ruth can give us a bit of insight on Galileo's mind while under house arrest. You just can't beat the person who never gives up. Even though Galileo was in jail, this is it. This is the last bar. You are done. When you are in jail or house arrest, there's nothing you can do. But Galileo still tried. He still kept writing books. But obviously, the people really didn't like him, so who's he writing the books for? To the people of the future, who would eventually realize that he was right. Even though Galileo was pushed down and told that he was wrong and unrightfully thrown in jail, well, under house arrest, he still never gave up. And it's not because Galileo was a strong person, but because he had a special weapon in his back pocket. He had a special weapon that no one else had, something only he knew. He knew that he was right. And he knew it was only a matter of time until people actually checked and found out he's right. And in 1633, some people started getting used to the idea that maybe Galileo was right. And that led us to the astronomy that we have today. This quote from Dale Carnegie can sum up the second part of the speech. Most of the important things in this world have been accomplished by people who have kept trying when there seemed to be no hope at all. Even though that's like a very specific quote to the situation, it is very true. As the important things in this world, if you have something important to say, you're gonna say it. Let's review sharp minds. By now you've already gotten like a mental definition on what a sharp mind is, as I've been mentioning it so many times. But that's just scratching the surface. I haven't gotten nearly enough on what it actually means to be a sharp mind, what it means to be someone like Galileo. Maybe if we find this out, we can find out why Galileo is such an inspirational figure. First off, Galileo's persistence. You can see that Galileo hadn't stopped, even when all the odds were against him. He kept trying and pushing on till victory. Let me tell you a short story about my piano experience. So I was playing the piano, and like any piano player does, I got stuck on a piece. I kept trying and trying, and eventually I had mastered the piece, so I could keep going on. Galileo was stuck. He had to keep trying and trying. He checked his evidence. He knew he was right, and eventually he won. Galileo had won, and astronomy would never be the same. Secondly, Galileo has no supporters. This is unfortunately a common trait among sharp-minded people. Usually they're all alone. But this, while it may seem sad at first, it's actually not that bad of a thing, as it boosts you into a feedback loop. You want people to be with you, so you do things that people will notice. Whether that be for good or bad, you'll still be doing things that people will notice, which will gain you respect. And respect, more people notice, more respect. You feel good, so you keep doing whatever you were doing. And that's what kickstarts them into being something more than just the sum of their parts. They become something greater. They leave a long-lasting effect. So once I was doing an online math worksheet, and I came across a problem. It was pretty easy. I did it, and the questionnaire said I was wrong. I double and triple checked. It was definitely right, but it kept saying I was wrong. When I asked the teacher, she said it was right. And so I did it again, but now I tweaked my answer because the teacher had said she had accidentally made a mistake in the answers. So I tweaked it a bit, and it said it was right. Even though no one was on Galileo's side, he was alone in his thoughts, Galileo still kept persevering, and he still went on to make something great of himself, despite of his troubles. Now, it's one thing to just really, not like Galileo. You just don't look at him at the streets. You don't want to talk about him, don't want to talk about his name, but it's another thing to really not like him. That's what most people had in this sense, as they really, really did not like Galileo. They didn't want to think about putting Galileo's ideas into their heads. Because, think about it. If someone told you something that disproves what your parents had said, what your family had said, what your friends, what everyone had said, would you really trust him? Some people might say, of course I would, but no, it's very unlikely. Once I was playing video games with my friend, as you do, and he was trying to knock me out in the entire time in the game. So, when he got stuck, I got my revenge on him. He really didn't like that, but I still kept inviting him over, and eventually he forgave me. Even though people really didn't like Galileo for saying what he said, even though that they really, really wanted him gone, and again, that's why no one tried to stop him, when he was going to house arrest. Not one person was like, no, Galileo, you can't go, no. Because no one really cared. No one, and this is what made Galileo a strong figure. He yearned for respect, and eventually he did get it as one of the forefathers of 3 different subjects. Galileo was a sharp mind, but he wasn't the only sharp mind. There are so many people that you're going to hear about today, authors, chefs, everyone you're going to hear about is a sharp mind. And with the right skills and with the right heart, I know that sounded really cheesy, you, my friend, may just be a sharp mind yourself. I'd like to thank my family, my friends, my peers, the people at Inspire Academy, and Miss Priya. I'd like to thank the people at Enspire Academy an extra thanks, as they helped me and my peers become great public speakers. Are there any questions about anything that I have addressed today?
All right, Daniel, great speech. Loved it. Does the judge have any comments?
Daniel, you were excellent in your presentation, your content, and Galileo's story is, very inspiring to the level that he was persistent.
Yeah.
And my question would be, how persistence and knowledge can make you a better person?
Well, persistence and knowledge. Well, persistence helps, as if someone tells you no, you keep going. There are many people in this world that have been told no several times, but still got what they needed. Either with self-perseverance, by doing it themselves, or they kept going with persistence, both which can make you a better person as you can achieve your goals, which usually are to the benefit of others. Knowledge helps because knowledge, knowledge helps because when you have knowledge, you know things about people. You know what the impact of your creation will have on others, and you know how you can make it for the better. And so knowledge will also help you create something wonderful, as even if you don't have it, you'll still have the ideas in your head. Knowledge will help you implement that idea. So yeah, that's how knowledge and persistence makes you a better person.
Thank you, Daniel. Excellent. Thank you so much.